Donald Trump's campaign says, get ready for tonight's groundbreaking speech. Trump is speaking in Wisconsin, and because of all the violence erupting this weekend, Trump's speech is all about law and order. But that's not all. Trump has a co-author tonight, Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Now, you can watch the speech live in just about 90 minutes right here on Fox News, and then a big town hall with Sean Hannity at 10 p.m. Eastern. And a big focus will be those violent protests and riots in Milwaukee the past few nights. And as police in Milwaukee gear up for more possible protests tonight, Trump sat down with Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clark. And in just moments, Sheriff Clark will tell you about that meeting. But ahead of this big speech, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is here to go on the record. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Donald Trump meeting with law enforcement in Milwaukee. Why?
Well, I think, first of all, if you look at the disaster the last couple of nights, there's a profound reason to sit down and talk to people about what happened. In Sheriff David Clark, he has somebody who really understands the issues and who really has laid out the failure of liberal institutions, the failure of liberal programs, and the degree to which they create the environment in which you end up with these kind of riots. And I mean, Clark is an amazing guy to listen to because he totally gets it. He both gets law and order, but he also gets the disaster of trapping people in poverty and keeping them there and making them dependent and having them basically have no future.
I always feel bad for the police because they get brought in when it's too late. And politicians have gotten money from the federal level, or they've made promises to the community that they're going to fix things. We've lost the war on poverty that LBJ initiated 50 years ago. And so it's like, why isn't anyone getting these inner cities out of poverty?
Well, I mean, first of all, you have huge vested interests that want to keep them in poverty, or are unwilling to do the things that would get them out of poverty. You have local politicians who'd rather demagogue than solve things and who are afraid of their liberal allies. You have teachers' unions that absolutely refuse to change things. You have city bureaucracies that want to keep regulations. They want to keep taxes high. And if you explain to them that kills small business, it kills jobs, they don't care.
Well, so will Trump change this?
I think he's certainly going to lead an effort to do so. And I think the fact that he has Sheriff Clark as an ally tells you that he is prepared to do very real things. And frankly, Speaker Paul Ryan has done a series of very profound speeches on this. I mean, there's a growing body of understanding. None of this stuff is working, and we have to break loose from where we are.
And tonight he's as a co-writer of his speech, Mayor Rudy Giuliani.
Well, Rudy had, take the example, there were 9 people shot and 5 of them died in Milwaukee. In the 2 days before, the policeman shot the man who was armed and pointing a pistol at him. 9 people shot, 5 dead. Rudy, when he was mayor, instituted a program which reduced murders in New York by an extraordinary number. Now, because they were conservative, because they strengthened the police, because they empowered people to actually go after criminals, liberals have hated them. So liberals have preferred to have 3,500 people killed in Chicago while Obama was president, rather than adopting the kind of program Giuliani had in New York. So Giuliani is the perfect guy to have in this setting, talking about what we need to do in the inner city.
And, of course, we're going to hear from the speech tonight as well as Sean's town hall with Donald Trump. Okay, Mr. Speaker, the House Oversight Committee now has the FBI files from the Clinton email investigation. So now what do they do with the Clinton files?
Well, they're going to look at them. They're going to find out that she lied even more. But, I mean, this is in the end in the hands of the American people. More revelations are going to come out, more indications of what the Russians did, for example, paying off Bill Clinton. Paying off the Clinton Foundation, more revelations about arms dealers from Africa, more revelations about how they looted money that should have gone to Haiti. I mean, all of this stuff will come out all through September, and then people just have to make a decision.
The campaign, the Hillary Clinton campaign, says that they wish that the documents could be released widely so that the public can see them for themselves rather than allow Republicans to mischaracterize them through selective partisan leaks. What's wrong with releasing all of them?
I think if Mrs. Clinton would like to write Director Comey and say, you have my authority to go ahead and release all of them, I think he would probably be willing to release all of them.
But do you have any problem with the House releasing them?
No. Well, the House technically can't because they've been given to the House on grounds of secrecy. But I think if Mrs. Clinton really wants them released, I just would challenge her to send a letter to the Director of the FBI and say, you have my authority, my permission to go ahead and release them. And watch how fast she starts to backpedal.
All right, so you think this is phony?
No, their position is totally phony. Look, the more we learn as various emails break out, as we had WikiLeaks and other things, there's no question they misused the office of the Secretary of State. There's no question they were cutting deals. There's no question they were taking money from foreigners. And by the way, this also goes for the chairman of her campaign, Podesta. Look at all the different foreign governments that hire his brother and then say to me, oh, they really aren't trying to buy influence. Nobody believes that.
All right, Mr. Speaker, yesterday you called Donald Trump's ISIS speech, quote, historic.
Our new approach, which must be shared by both parties in America, by our allies overseas, and by our friends in the Middle East, must be to halt the spread of radical Islam. As president, I will call for an international conference focused on this goal. We will work side by side with our friends in the Middle East, including our greatest ally, Israel. My administration will aggressively pursue joint and coalition military operations to crush and destroy ISIS, international cooperation to cut off their funding, expanded intelligence sharing, and cyber warfare to disrupt and disable their propaganda and recruiting. Their recruiting is taking place right now, and they're setting records. It's got to be stopped. As soon as I take office, I will ask the State Department and the Department of Homeland Security to identify a list of regions where adequate screening cannot take place. There are many such regions. We will stop processing visas from those areas until such time as it is deemed safe to resume based on new circumstances or new procedures.
And tomorrow, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence will give Donald Trump his first classified intelligence briefing. Mr. Speaker, why did you say that his speech yesterday on ISIS was historic?
It's been 39 years, or 37 years, since the Iranians seized hostages illegally. It has been 15 years since 9/11 and almost 3,000 Americans were killed. This is the first candidate for president to lay out the objective reality that we're up against a movement, that the movement is in fact Islamic supremacism or radical Islamists, that you have to worry about what people think, and basically applying a Cold War model. As CIA Director Jim Woolsey pointed out, all throughout the Cold War, you know, if you were a communist and you wanted to come to the United States, we didn't let you. Because we had a clear sense that you were a danger to the survival of our Constitution. Well, I think what he calls sort of an enhanced look at these folks is exactly right. I think that his willingness to talk about the notion that we're up in a fight with an international movement is right. And I think this was actually the speech George W. Bush should have given sometime in late 2001 and was basically talked out of it by the State Department and others who were afraid to really outline clearly the kind of enemy we're up against. He's run out of time. A lot of people say that his campaign has gotten off the rails, although his supporters were happy with the speech yesterday. He's on teleprompter. Wait to see what happens tonight, and with Sean Hannity as well at 10. But with early voting, he's really running out of time. He's losing in a lot of the polls in the swing states. So what's going to happen? Well, he's going to have to do better, and I think a lot of those polls, by the way, show that Hillary's ahead, and so you only look at the +5, +3, whatever. Look at what her numbers are. This is a person who's been in public life now for almost at least 40 years. She's been First Lady, she's been U.S. Senator, she's been Secretary of State, and she's at 41. Now, I would just suggest to you that shows a level of resistance to Secretary Clinton that is breathtaking. She spent over, counting her allies, over $110 million in ads. He has spent zero. And I try to remind people, the election's not in August, despite every effort of the New York Times.
It is at the end of September. I mean, it's not November 8th. It begins really at the end of September with the early voting.
In one state, Minnesota.
And then
gradually builds up. So he's got to, by late September, be in a lot better shape than he is now.
And we'll see what happens. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, always nice to see you, sir.